Welcome to Talking Film, and the first of two programmes featuring Norman Eshley. Norman was a familiar face on British television in the 1970s and 1980s, cropping up in Warship, Department S, I, Claudius, The Sweeney, Secret Army, The Professionals and Minder, to name just a few. And he's perhaps best known for his role as the neighbour in 38 episodes of George and Mildred. But for me, as an enthusiast for the work of Orson Welles, he's intriguing because his very first job on camera, was for Welles. He starred in the Immortal Story alongside Jeanne Moreau and Welles himself. Welles made the film for French television and theatrical release at around the same time he was working on Chimes at Midnight, although Chimes was released first. There aren't many people left who can say they starred in an Orson Welles picture, and as you'll hear, Norman got to know the great man very well. How did you get into acting? Where did it all start for you?
Well, I was very lucky. I had a teacher at grammar school. When I went to grammar school when I was 11, I passed the 11 plus, and I joined every club that was going, including the photographic club, and I didn't have a camera. But I joined all the clubs, including the drama one. And there was a teacher there called Bert Payne, who I think saw something in me because he became a huge influence in my life. And he cast me in my first school play, juniors, and then he put me into a senior play, and I played Portia and Julius Caesar. And that was fun in an all-boys school. A few punch-ups when I put the frock on. And then he sort of gave me a lead in another play. And then he one day came to me with forms for the National Youth Theatre, which I filled in. I went for an audition and I got in. And I was quite amazed. And we did two plays at Sadler's Wells. And the sort of people in the youth theatre in those days were sort of Ken Cranham, Timothy Dalton, Helen Mirren, Derek Jacobi. I mean, there were some amazing people there. I didn't know all of them, obviously. And then when I came back, I didn't get into the sixth form and I started working in a bank because my dad used to work in a bank and I hated it. And Bert set up a Bristol Youth Theatre and he did the first play, and the only play he did was Peer Gynt. And he gave me the part of Peer Gynt. And unbeknownst to me, he invited the Old Vic school to come and see it. And they offered me a scholarship. And it was all because of him. And I was so ungrateful. And I realize that now, that I didn't go and see him afterwards and thank him, because I only really put it together when I was in my 30s. And yeah, I think everybody needs a teacher like him. He was a most wonderful man. Bert Payne, Bristol Grammar School, wonderful man. And yeah, and then so I joined the school. And it was wonderful. It was like the first day I walked through the gates, it was like I was at home. Everybody there was the same sort of temperament. There were people from all over England and Ireland and Wales and a couple of people from abroad. And we all spoke the same language, and it was extraordinary. And again, well, first time for me, I had sort of mixed education, which I really quite enjoyed. And it was a wonderful guy called Nat Brenner was the principal. And he kind of took me under his wing. And I just felt at home for the first time. It was a bit like that when I went into the National Youth Theatre. But everybody had the same purpose, which was to do something good. And I loved it, absolutely loved it at the Old Vic School. And while I was there, I did my 2 years and I won the Bristol Evening Post award, which was for best actor, and I won it with my best friend Richard Lewis, who unfortunately killed himself 7 years later. But that opened doors for me because the Evening Post award winner naturally joined the Old Vic company, and as it happened that year, they were going to tour America, which was unheard of. I mean, it was a £10 a week job, and suddenly you were going to America, and it was an awful lot of money. But then something extraordinary sort of happened in between me joining them, I'd got an agent by then. He'd seen the last production, but I was busy painting as an ASM, assistant stage manager. I was busy painting the walls of the Old Vic behind. And given the amount I smoke, it's quite ironic that I was painting no smoking on the walls. And I got a phone call, which is probably the most bizarre phone call I've ever had in my life. And my agent said to me, Orson Welles wants to see you in Madrid. And, so he repeated it, and the arrangements were made, and I was to fly out. And I'd never flown before. And Mum and Dad drove me up to Heathrow, and I had no idea what it was all about or why or anything. And I flew to Madrid, and I was picked up in a semi-stretch limo, and I was driven to this house in Madrid. And while I was there, I was supposed to be coming back that evening, and Mum insisted I wore my best suit that I wore in the bank. um, and anyway, whilst I was there, Paula, Wells's wife, came out to me and she said, I'm terribly sorry, Norman, but Orson can't see you. He's just got thrown out of a restaurant. He was getting drunk with Joseph Cotton. And I'm thinking, Orson Welles, Joseph Cotton, what the hell? I'm a boy from Bristol. What the hell's all this about? And so I went swimming. They gave me trunks and things. And then eventually she came to me later in the afternoon and said, Orson, we'll see you now. So I went up to the house and I sat there. And then the voice walked in and we sat talking. And a couple of members of his staff had said to me, because I'd asked them what it was about and they wouldn't tell me, but they said he doesn't like yes men. So me, 21 years old, sat there and I'm listening. I'm going, yes, Mr. Welles, no, Mr. Welles, yes, Mr. And he suddenly said, what's on at this Bristol Old Vic? And I told him it was a play called Poor Beatos. He said, Ennui, a shit writer. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about ennui. So I just said, I don't agree with you. And he said, what do you mean? And I started waffling and talking absolute rubbish. And he started laughing and he pushed a bell under his desk. And some of the staff came in. He said, give the guy some dough, let him go see the town. And I left, I shook his hand and I left. And they all said, you've got it, you've got it. And I said, got what? I don't know what I'm here for. And they then rearranged my flight. They put me up in a hotel. They got me drunk that night in Madrid. And they put me on the plane the next day. And I came home and everybody, mum and dad, the people at the Old Vic and everything were saying, what was he like? And I still had no idea. And then eventually a script came through the door and it was a film. And there were just four people in it. And it was Orson Welles, Jeanne Moreau, a French actor called Roger Coggio, and me. And so my agent arranged with the Old Vic company that I should get time off. And I flew to Madrid to do this film. And well, first of all, I flew to Paris, first of all. And I had to have my hair dyed blonde because I was playing a Danish sailor. And I was so naive that I learned the whole script, not, like film-wise, you learn day by day by day. No, I learned the whole script. But he was so kind to me. I've heard several disparaging remarks through my life about him, but he was so caring. And a camera came over. He said to me, okay, let's hear it. He insisted I was on set every day in my costume as this sailor. And he just wanted me to get the feel of it all. And then about 10 days into this, he suddenly said, well, we're going to work with you today, Norman. And he said, let me hear your lines. So I started doing them like, bah, 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 bah. He said, I'm not here to listen to your lines. I'm here to hear what you're going to do. And a French crew came over and started filming. He said, get away, I'm working with my actor. And so I did it as I was going to do. And he said, hey, we could have let them film that, couldn't we? And he was just such a kind man. Oh, there is a couple of quite rude stories, but not too rude. My first day was to get into bed with Jeanne Moreau. And the day before, she'd been doing a scene where she was going around snuffing out candles, preparing for me to come into this room. And she was almost naked, but you could, it was a peignoir that you could see through. And Wells said to me, "Get out if you're Norman, you're too young to see this." And I thought, well, Christ, I'm in bed with her the next day. And I was. But then when I got into bed with her and the crew were there, let me put this politely. Unfortunately, I rose to the occasion. I was trying to lie on my stomach and ignoring everything. Wells was harumphing, and the crew were all looking around all over the place. And Jeanne just lay there smiling. Anyway, it went and we got on with it. And I was wearing at that thing, a French little thing, which is called a cache sex, which translated means hide sex. It was a very flimsy little document. But the French crew couldn't let it go at that because the next day they presented me with a jockstrap. that was my journey from drama school to my first job, and I spent 6 weeks there with him. And in Spain, I used to eat at their house every night, and the family kind of adopted me. It was Wells's wife and his daughter Beatrice and Wells, and he used to tell me stories of Hollywood. And when he'd tell me a story about a certain person, he'd almost became them. And it was just like a different world. It was totally different, and it was a bit lonely in a way. Anyway, then I finished the film and I came back and joined the lot, and we all went off to America, and we toured America for 5 months, and then Europe and Israel. And by the time I was 22, I'd done 3 Shakespeare plays on Broadway. Not playing leads, but I was understudying the leads, and I'm playing nice parts. And it was the most extraordinary start to anyone's career. I just.
But did you get a sense that he was lonely? You said it was quite lonely. It was quite lonely. I suppose you mean for yourself, really, suddenly being in a gang of strangers, I suppose, a family of strangers, and being young. But did you get a sense that was he enjoying life? Do you think in Madrid?
Oh, oh, very much so. I mean, he had the family. I mean, what I missed was the evenings. I mean, I just go back to the hotel and go to sleep and prepare for the next day, and I was on my own, and there was no one to actually say, "Wasn't that fantastic? Wasn't that great?" or whatever. And I found it quite a lonely process. Um, I mean, Jeanne lived in Paris, as did Roger, and I mean, he wasn't lonely. He was a very happy man. I mean, he loved the crew. The crew loved him, and we had a ball.
Wasn't there something with the love scene where you said you had to, because you were shooting a single of Jean, a single of you, and there was a big
Oh,
gap
God,
between.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, when we were in Spain, um, Jeanne didn't come to Spain. She left. She did some stuff there, and then she left. And then continuity came up to Wells and said, "We've forgotten to do a scene." And he looked at it. He said, "Oh my God!" Now Jeanne wasn't available, so it was a scene where I was lying on top of her, and we were actually at it. And so they sent the cameraman up to Paris, and he photographed her from on top and her waking up. And then he came back to Madrid and photographed me with me looking down on her and replying to her. And it's the first time I've had sex, and we were 356 miles apart. It cut together very well, but it was so weird. Um,
It's, obviously, it's not just Wells, it's Jeanne Moreau as well, isn't it? She was a big star at the time.
she was huge, and she was a wonderful person. She had a kind of a little bit of an aloofness, and she was a bit of a girl as well. She had 2 young men that were occasionally appear on set, and they were her lovers, both of them. And when we were in Madrid, I did get a bit of Spanish tummy, and she offered to come to my room that night and sort me out. And I refused because I was feeling ill. And I now think to myself, she actually probably was going to bring me some medicine, but I thought there was something else going on. But oh, she was a stunning. I mean, she she was more the earth person. There was Jeanne Moreau, who was very kind of. There was Brigitte Bardot, who was kind of chocolate boxy. I felt, but Jeanne was something else, and to be lying next to her and talking, and it was extraordinary.
And the other thing I think you mentioned to me before is that obviously you can see it in the film. There aren't any two shots of Wells and anybody else. He shoots singles of you. And do you know what was going on there?
Yeah, he hated to do his shots with other actors. So if I had a scene with him where he had to speak, and I did, he'd be sitting in his ordinary clothes and he would feed me behind the camera and I'd do the lines. And then when everyone went home, he did his stuff by himself. He was quite a shy man, I think, and he was happy to work in front of a crew, but he didn't want to work in front of other actors.
That's an insecurity, isn't it?
I don't know. We never actually got. I mean, vocally we played the scene, but I played it vocally and physically, whereas he would just vocally feed me the lines, not necessarily even with the intonation that he'd later do. Yeah, no, I think it was an insecurity.
How old were you then when you filmed that, did you say?
21.
21. Did you, I mean, did you let yourself think, oh, this is going to lead to something big, or did you just have no idea, no idea how to work out what it all meant at that age?
I, I couldn't see. I mean, I was just surprised to be doing something like this because the Times had been down to our last term at drama school, and they took pictures of three or four of us, and they were quite derisory. They said that the most that any of us could expect was a walk on and one line in Z cars, and I slightly did more than that, and it was a position where I didn't really. I don't think I understood it. I was so naive. But once I had Wells's name on my CV, it opened doors like there was no tomorrow. I mean, I know an awful lot of actors who are as good as me, if not better, in that they never got the breaks. And it is that break that you need. And people were curious to work with me.
Did he just pick you from an audition tape, or when you went to see him, was he still deciding, or had he already decided, do you think?
Somebody had seen my last performance in at the Old Vic School in a thing called Tiger at the Gates, and I was a Giraudoux play, and I was playing Hector of Troy. And I then was asked to go to London and meet up with a guy called Mark Moret, who'd apparently heard of this. And Moret was an agent for Wells. And Moret interviewed me in the Kensington Gardens Hotel. And it was then after that that I got the phone call, Orson Welles wants to see you in Madrid. But it was that little, I mean, I had no idea what I was going for. But Moret said, I've been told to look at you and talk to you. And he just auditioned me, not on film or anything. But they were looking for somebody to play the sailor, and they wanted either an English, or he was a Danish sailor, but they wanted either an English or a Danish actor or something. And I was lucky I got it.
And have you seen that film recently?
Not recently. I saw it when it first came out, and I was horrified. Um, it's that thing when you first hear your voice and you don't know what you think, oh, is that me? And it was the same as looking at myself. I mean, obviously you looked at yourself in a mirror and shaved and all that sort of thing. I was horrified because who I am inside didn't seem to be on the screen. And I've never, I mean, one of my first televisions, I threw up afterwards. And, I mean, I've got it over there and I haven't looked at it there's a disc over there. I haven't seen it 30 years.
You didn't take part in any of the promotion for that then? That was the last, so it would have been the last time you saw Wells was when you left the set?
No, it wasn't. I went to dub some stuff in Paris for him, and we met up there. And I had my hair dyed back black and brown, dark brown. And Wells said, "What the hell have you done to yourself? I've made you beautiful." So we just shook hands, and yeah, it was the dubbing studio. That was the end of that. He did ask me at one point if I would consider being adopted by him. He had his daughter Beatrice, but he didn't have a son. And he said, "You could come and live with us in Madrid. I will teach you everything I know about films." And he said, "I'll pay you." And I just couldn't do it. It was that lonely thing. I also had parents, and if you look back, it's a really stupid opportunity to turn down. But at the same time, it seemed right at the time. And I wouldn't have done that tour. Travel broadens the mind, and that was an extraordinary thing to do, the tour of America. And we were in Israel just after the 6-Day War, but he really wanted a son. He wanted, but he did say the words, "I want to adopt you."
He obviously connected with you in a big way, didn't he?
Oh, we did. And do you know something? I've never been able to call him Orson. I've always still, even now, I still think of him as Mr. Wells. I was this little kid, as far as I, mentally. Everybody else was saying Orson this and Orson on the set, and I was Mr. Wells. Yeah. And I still think of him as Mr. Wells.
So it's a really special story to be able to tell, I think. I'm sure you realise it's special, but...
It is an amazing feeling. I mean, one of my favourite films ever was Chimes at Midnight. And I'd have given anything to have been in that. But he was just, I can't say he's interesting, because he brought new worlds into my life. I mean, whole new worlds. You talk about James Cagney or Edward G. Robinson, and suddenly they were real people instead of people up there on the screen.
Mm.
He did waste a lot of money, I know that, but he also had this imagination which was beyond the strictures of say, a studio. He wanted to see huge things happening, and he was a different mind to anyone I've ever known. He showed me a script. It was a Western, and he wanted me to play the boy coming back from war, a Confederate soldier. And he said, "It's like Hamlet on horseback." He said, "The things that they've done to the family, and you're coming back to revenge them." And he said, "I'll play your grandfather." And of course, nothing happened. But I read the script and I was like, bomb. It was amazing. And the thought of Wells doing a Western would have been interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. That's another one of the projects that he never got to finish then, isn't it? There was a few of those going around, wasn't there? And interesting what you said about his imagination being beyond the studios. It'd be interesting to see what he did. You think about Christopher Nolan now, that kind of level of artistic endeavour. You'd be interested to see what Wells did now.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the first part of this special with Norman Eshley. In part 2, Norman stars with Mia Farrow in a Brian Clemens script for the director Richard Fleischer. And he recalls working with John Thor, Dennis Waterman, George Cole, John Hurt and many others. Plus, he takes an X-rated horse riding lesson with legendary stuntman Nosha Powell. Join us then.
Talking Film was produced and presented by Greg Lewis. It was a Magic Rat production.